welcome back to 1903 Spring Roll. Today's video is going to be on 3 pieces of British Army kit from the Cold War era and why they were a little bit questionable or why soldiers didn't like them. So each one will have the history of development that led them up to that point, the good features and the bad. Starting off, we have pattern 58 webbing, which is why the camera angle's slightly funky. So pattern 58 webbing was the successor to the pattern 37 or 38 webbing, which itself was the successor of the pattern 1908 webbing. Starting with pattern 1908 webbing, it compared to other countries like Germany or France or Belgium, it was made out of canvas instead of leather, which meant it was more resistant to rot, it was slightly more comfortable, and it also had a battle jacket design. So with the other types of webbing you had during the war, you had either a belt with just cartridge pouches on them, picture here, or you had a belt with suspenders and cartridge pouches that you had to adjust when you put it on. So it was overall a very good design. After the war, during the interwar period, they adopted the Bren gun, and with that they decided, all right, let's continue the basic idea but of cotton or canvas, and let's make it better, more universal. So they changed a whole lot of things. The main pack stayed the same, but it had a haversack, water bottle carrier, water bottle, and 2 universal pouches alongside an entrenching tool holder. The universal pouches could hold 2 Bren mags, so 27 rounds each, and those were designed so that way the section or fire team, I don't know what the British term is, could pass it. All of them carried ammunition for the machine gun, so it was also machine gun centric, much like the Germans. And then the other pouch or in bandoliers, you would hold SMLE clips. But after World War II, the British started modernizing, and with that came a change from a bolt-action rifle to a battle rifle. In this case, the L1A1, better known as the FN-FAL. And so they needed an all-new webbing design because pattern 37 was starting to show its age, and so they changed it. They introduced this. So I'm going to go over it component-wise. We have a pair of suspenders, also known as a yoke. And then starting from the right side, making our way around, this is how I have it set up. The left side, working our way around. Ammunition pouch. Right now this has a cardboard box in it to make it look filled out. Water bottle pouch with a canteen. Kidney pouch, and a cape carrier. So this could be used for either your wool sweater or a poncho. I really like this feature. And then the kidney pouches are for your mess tin, stove, spare socks, toiletries kit, and spare underwear. And then coming over to the right side, we have a water bottle pouch, again with a water bottle, and then an empty water bottle pouch. So I use this one as a utility pouch. Either when I'm shooting shotguns, I just pour in a box of shotgun shells in there, and it works great for that. Then another ammunition pouch. This would have been issued with one water bottle carrier, and generally soldiers carried as many as they could for one, utility, two, more water bottles, because it's really hard to die of overhydration. So as many as they could scrounge and as many as they could carry. I only have 3, but I have space to fit a 4th. The yoke has an entrenching tool holder. This is one of the questionable elements of the design. So that's sort of basic fighting load. And there's also a pack. So the pack is sort of the source of the vast majority of problems. So here we have the pack. So starting at the top, we have a bedroll or greatcoat, pair of straps. Reasonable. We have a helmet holder which attaches to the main flap, again with a pair of straps. Here I have a Mark IV and a couple of buckles to hold this on and this on. 2 side pouches for odds and ends, and it attaches to the webbing with these 2 hooks which go attached to D-rings on the front of the harness, and 2 clips at the bottom which go onto the belt. So now that I've talked about what the pack does, let's talk about the questionable features. So for starters, bedroll straps. The British Army transitioned from wool blankets to a sleeping bag. The compression sack for the sleeping bag was smaller than the distance between the 2 straps. And although it was an unpopular feature, if you don't have the ends of the straps, they will bang against your helmet and make a ton of noise. The helmet carrier wasn't widely used. 2 reasons for this. One, if you're don't expect to use your helmet, what's the point in carrying it? So if you're in counterinsurgency or hearts and minds type affair, you wouldn't be wearing this. You'd be wearing a beret. So that's that. And it's also, when you're not using it, it's 2 extra straps that you have to undo to open the pack, and they're not quick release. On previous packs, the British had shoulder straps, so section next to yours gets in contact and you need to sprint over there or jog or whatever. You want to release as much weight as you can from, besides water, ammo, maybe some food. So on this pack, you can't do that. It doesn't have the underarm straps like on a regular backpack. You have to ask a friend, or if you're alone, you have to take off your webbing, use both hands to take it off, and then ditch it. Not a great design. Also, the lack of straps that go all the way around and connect to the pack itself is it's not very comfortable. All the weight of the pack goes straight into your shoulders. Another side effect of the way it attaches to the webbing is if you set it down or you release the tension on the top, it either bunches up or the hooks detach from the D-rings and get shifted up to the little strips of webbing on the harness. So this here, and then here are the D-rings. Up next, we have DMS boots. And in order to understand the design choices behind them, we have to take a look through British boot history. In the Napoleonic Wars, the British introduced ankle boots, also known as B5s or ammunition boots. So the sort of basic design has remained unchanged from the 1800s, and DMS boots were introduced in the 1950s. So leather upper, ankle height boots, 7 or 8 pairs of eyelets. The sole originally was leather with toe and heel plates for a little bit of added durability. Later on, they added hobnails to them. Hobnails are, contrary to popular belief, not for grip. I have worn these on various surfaces. They do not add grip, especially not on polished concrete. Don't ask me how I know. So, they've been rocking with the same boot design with slight modifications for 150 years at that point. And then World War II ends, and they started developing a new boot to match trends, because the Russians and Americans had rubber-soled shoes from starting in the World War II period, or a little bit before. The British wanted to modernize, so they took their trusted ankle boot design and made a couple of changes. To start off with the changes, instead of having to spit shine the entire boot, which on leather with any sort of texture, I believe it's top grain leather, I'm not 100% sure, it takes so much shoe polish to fill in the cracks. So instead they made a separate toe cap that soldiers just had to polish that, and that would pass inspection. Pretty big quality of life improvement for soldiers. And they also added a rubber sole. This pair is Canadian, so sort of again, main improvement, a rubber sole that was direct molded on, hence the name direct molded sole boot. Why are they trash? So if you were to make a list or a graph of trench foot cases in the British military, you see a spike in World War I, a spike in World War II, and then about 40 years later, a spike during the Falklands War. The reason is leather is fairly breathable. So if water got into the boot, water could get out in pretty quick order, unless you were stuck in the water, like in World War II and in the Netherlands. Like if you're in a trench in World War I, or if you're in a foxhole in the Netherlands in World War II. Unfortunately, rubber is kind of famous for being waterproof. And then water would get in, and it had no way of leaving. So in order to counteract water coming in, the British did what they had done in the Boer War and in World War I and World War II, which was introduce something that went over the top of the boot. World War I, those were long puttees. So strips of wool cloth that you wind up around all the way to just below your knee. It had some issues, but it does keep things from getting inside your boots. During World War II, they had short gaiters that also kept things out of the top of your boot. The British reintroduced puttees, except in a new and improved form, that you wound around the top of your boot several times, and that was it. So there's a lower barrier to entry for water and less effective boot height. than compared with World War I puttees or the gaiters from World War II. And then the second issue is water had nowhere to go. You were stuck to, there's no stitching anywhere on the boot or on the lower part of the boot, so water can't leave that way. There's no holes or vents for water to leave. And the solution that the British had was a new insole. This is an American, this is an American one, and it has ridges on the bottom, and it's made out of a, I want to say, nylon mesh. And what this does is it allows air to circulate underneath your foot, helps dry out a little bit more, and if there's like 0.5 millimeter of water in your boot, no problem. That's probably enough that it'll just evaporate out. However, during the Falklands War, they realized that the insoles were crummy, they kept falling apart, and that the boots weren't tall enough to keep water out. And again, the water had nowhere to go. So during the Falklands War, you find a lot of reports of British soldiers taking the boots off dead Argentinians and wearing those instead because they were better than their kit. And that is shameful for the British. Eventually, they came to the same conclusion that pretty much everyone else had by that point and introduced taller boots. Again, not a British pair, but something like this, where water can't get in until about here, and there's more ways for it to evaporate. It's the reason why they're on this list is, one, trench foot sucks, and two, the fix had been identified like years ago by other nations. It just took the British Army a long time to implement them. For the last item on this list, we have the individual Northern Ireland body armor, INIBA, right? So let's get into the history behind it. So Operation Banner, the British are patrolling the streets of Northern Ireland, and they realize we have a lot of bombs. Irish car bomb, the stereotypical college drink, you know. So they're like, they call up the Americans and they're like, hey, can we buy some sets of your body armor that you are using in Vietnam? The US government was like, yeah, sure, take them, you know, pay us, whatever. Diplomacy. So the British get a hold of these, they're like, thank you, we know some deficiencies. So they introduce a modified version, which I'm going to show here. This has rubber on the shoulders, so that way when you're bringing up your gun, if you have to fire, it has a stop on either side for right or left-handed, or, you know, you're around a street corner and you need to poke out to the left. So that gives you something here, or something here that you can push your gun against for whatever have you, right? Improvement. And then it still has the aluminum or magnesium. I'm not actually remember. It's been so long since I've researched this video. But anyways, it has the plates, and they're good against shrapnel, but they aren't good against pistols. So the British government says, let's make our own body armor. And it is going to have Kevlar to stop some pistol caliber threats and mostly shrapnel, because that is a new technology. It is also going to have actual plates. One thing that the body armor does well is be cheap on the surplus market. That is for the cover itself, which is all that I have for demonstration purposes. And from what I've read, it was questionable how it was worn, but nobody actually had any problems with the performance of it. So I have been wearing the body armor this entire time. You can't tell, one, because I don't have the filling or the plate, so it isn't incredibly apparent. But anyways, it is meant to be worn with a beret on your head to pose less of a threatening look. Debatable, given that soldiers were still carrying rifles or machine guns down the street. They're wearing their camouflage uniforms, and they're wearing webbing. But, you know, every little bit helps, I guess. So, anyways, here is the body armor. I have an orange shirt on for contrast. As you can tell, it is not covering a lot from the front. For reference, I'm 5'6". So this plate, there's also one on the back. It covers 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches each against, from what I've been able to find online, and there isn't an exact rating that you can compare it to on the civilian market nowadays. It is 6.5 by 6.5. Not great coverage, but this is an early plate body armor. Here's what the insert looks like, which is the Kevlar part, and here is what the plates look like. I don't have either of those because they are incredibly hard to find, which is one of my nitpicks with this set of armor. But it is, the issues with this armor are, one, the plate on the front and the plate on the back combined cover less area than a sheet of printer paper. So, you know, it covers your heart, and that's pretty much it. Like, part of your lungs. It isn't protecting much, and at that point, you might as well have just a full plate carrier. The other issue is, why wear it underneath? Like, you're already threatening enough, and the Kevlar filling made you look considerably stronger than you were. Now, as for my personal issues with this body armor, I would like to restore functionality to it. So I would like a Kevlar filling, and I would like a plate, but nobody sells those because this is from the 80s, and both of those items are non-standard. So I can make my own for a few $100, and what's the point? Like, the cheapest option I have figured out for making this have any resemblance of functionality is 3D printing an adapter, so that way I can use standard-ish 6x6 side plates for modern plate carriers. So the design, questionable. The way it was worn, questionable. The utility, questionable. A modern day application, something like even the DMS boots, I use those as dress boots. The webbing I use for shooting. Like, this, nowadays it's just a collector's item. And it's just not that great because it is so expensive to try to fill it out. And because it's non-standard, it isn't something where you can go like, yes, a whatever size plate is $300. I can buy that, put it in here, and it'll be acceptable. It'll have some functionality. This just doesn't have any functionality. And if I wanted to restore it, it would be considerable amounts of money, at which point I might as well just buy a modern plate carrier. I didn't mention this earlier, but this helmet is the anti-stupid helmet. It was given to me by a very close friend of mine, so I want to say thank you to that friend. You know who you are. Love you, gang. And I haven't been posting. Life got busy. Stuff happened. I'm going to try to do that more. No sponsor for this video. And if you enjoy my content but want it in another format, you can look at Quora, link in the description. That's me writing about a lot about history, instead of it being me talking to a camera in my bedroom. It has sources that I'm reading, that I'm citing or like quoting from. It has different things. It's probably a better experience anyways. And then if you want like shorter form, like memes, where you just want to learn a very simplified version of a tidbit of history, my TikTok is also in the description. You get to see different things on each platform. I don't get money from any of this, so thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, night, or whatever else, and stay safe. The world's getting crazy.